Good morning. I have a package, and I was sort of expecting this a few days ago, or actually last week, and it never arrived. And then yesterday, a neighbor of mine called and said, I opened up my mailbox and I had a package of yours. So I went down the street and picked it up, and I thought that was really kind that they were able to track me down. I'm not too sure how they found my number. My phone number, but they had the package, and so here it is. And normally I have Pen Kid 2 helping me with these things, but he's at school, and I actually already opened this up and cleaned it up, and we're gonna take a look at it, and we're gonna ink it up and give it a writing sample. And what it is, it's from an eBay seller in Hungary, and it's a pen company that I've been interested in for some time. And the cool thing about this one is it came in a box. And I actually haven't purchased anything before on eBay that had a box. I don't know if this is the original one, but it's kind of nice to have the box, and it's a Centropen. And Centropen I'll say it was a fountain pen manufacturer in Czechoslovakia. Centropen still exists. They don't make fountain pens anymore, but they make sort of office supplies and art pencils and markers and ballpoints and highlighters and things like that, and stuff for kids, and pens of some form, probably just disposable roller balls or ballpoints. And now Centropen, after World War II and Czechoslovakia became a communist country, they gathered all their pen manufacturers together under one government-owned or government-controlled entity called Centropen. Central Pen, I guess it would be called. And so what I have is a box, just, simple card box, little dot pattern. It has the Centropen logo. And up here it says, there's a little crest. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little hard to make out. But what it says is, Toussaint d'Or, Golden Fleece. And there's sort of a laurel wreath logo and so on. So when you open it up, it says also Centropen on the inside. This is engraved usually on the barrels of all their fountain pens, that logo. And obviously at one time there was probably a ballpoint and a fountain pen. It'd be like a pen set gift box or something like that. But I don't have a ballpoint or anything like that. So you see inside, now I don't even know if this is the original pen with this box. Maybe it is. Kind of cool if it was. But I have another Centropen. I could just store it in there, I guess. It's a little bigger. But what you get is a fairly classic, simple black and silver fountain pen. Quite reminiscent of, say, a lot of fountain pens from the 1960s and early 70s. At first look, it reminds me sort of like a Parker 45. It also reminds me of some of the Pelicanos. And Pelican fountain pens of that period, say like the M10 or the M30s, or this Pelican 12 Silvexa, which I have. And it's a nice size pen. Vintage pens aren't big. That's one thing to know about them. If you're interested in getting into vintage pens, be aware that they tend not to be huge pens. And that's one of the reasons I like them. I don't like overly large pens. I have average hands. They're not big, they're not small, but I always enjoy a pen that's pen size. I don't want something that's just this kind of outlandishly large pen that's just large for the sake of being large, that I find that when I cap a pen, and I post my pens, I find that when I post a pen, it's quite comfortable in my hand quite often. There's been a few that pens that have been too narrow for me. But mostly I find vintage pens very comfortable. So you have a sort of a frosted steel, probably a stainless steel, I'm not too sure what the material is, cap, kind of like looks like the Lustraloy or the Sylvexa caps that you would find. Lustraloy, I believe, being Parker, and Sylvexa being Pelican. Correct me if I'm wrong. And on the side, you have Centropen. You can, right here, just make it out. Centropen. And there's the logo, Centropen, and there's usually a numbering system with Centropen. This one says 3770. My other Centropen is 10016. Now, I'm not too sure the rhyme or reason to their numbering system. I don't know if the number represents a model or a filling system or a year or something like that. Quite often when you see those numbers, they refer to nib sizes or years or materials or filling systems, but I'm not too sure what their system was. I really can't find too much information. If you go online and look up centropen.eu, you will come to their website, and there's just a very little bit of history on it, but mostly it's new products, what they carry, and things like that. So yeah, so I have two Centropen pens, like I said, and I've been sort of looking around for other ones and trying to find a good price and see one that was in good shape and caught my eye. The first one I got was this beautiful sort of resin pen with lots of chatoyance, gold colored armature, like the clip and the bands and the finial tips were all gold, and had a gold plated nib, steel nib, but and it's quite a nice pen. It actually is a very well-made pen. It's just, we think of pens from Eastern European or products from Eastern European communist countries as being shoddy, but actually, you know what? I think they made fairly good fountain pens. Like, and the funny thing is, you can still find them on eBay or on Etsy or different sellers, and sometimes you'll see them and they've never been used. And reading around, what I've learned is that because of scarcity of products, if somebody saw a pen or something like that, or something that they would think that was in the store and they had the money to buy it, often they would purchase it thinking that they would save it for good. Like, so they would set it aside. They might have a pen that they're using. They would set aside a new pen that they've purchased, and it would be in a drawer, and it might never get used because the other pens would keep working, or they would just forget about it. So sometimes you'll see them in kits. You'll see pen and pencil sets or pen and pen sets in their box, never been inked. So it's almost like new old stock. They tend to go a little higher. Anyway, so let's take a look at the pen. It's, like I said, it's not a huge pen. It has a pull cap, and I love pull caps. Black plastic section. I'm guessing it's plastic. I don't think it's resin. But a nice shape to it. A little clutching right here, and it caps with a nice click. You know that's going to hold on. And I love pull caps. I have lots of pens. This one, for instance, is a screw cap, and it's great. And when it's inked up, it never seems to dry out. I could leave it sitting for several days and come back to it, and it's going to write. And I haven't inked this one up yet. Looking inside, I can see that there is the light is really bad here at the moment. I should invest in some proper lights, but looking inside, I can just make out the fact that there seems to be a plastic liner inside the cap. So I'm hoping that this is a pen that won't dry out. It seems to have a very good seal. There's no breather hole that I can see right off on the cap. and everything is in good shape. It's barely has any scratches. I did clean this pen up. I gave it a wash last night because I was hoping to ink it up today. And one of the things that I really liked about this pen, hitting my camera, is that nib. It's quite an interesting looking nib. It's just sort of semi-hooded. It sort of reminds me of, now I could be wrong, of say a Mont Blanc. Quite often you'll see pens that sort of borrow design elements from other more well-known manufacturers, and they come up with some really interesting designs, and I keep hitting my camera. And yeah, so it's got this rather attractive steel nib, kind of an M-shaped cutout when I look at it. I was looking at the feed. It's sort of cut, and it cuts in quite nicely to the shape of the nib and to the shape of the barrel, or the section here. And I was trying to figure out some information about this pen, and for some reason, looking at it, I think it's ebonite, rather than a plastic feed, but I could be wrong. If you know if it's an ebonite or a plastic feed, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. I'm guessing it's ebonite just because of the cut marks on it. There seems to be something that tells me it's not plastic. The pen caps, the pen posts fairly nice, and it turns into a good size pen. Now, inside, you'll unscrew it, and there's a converter. Let's take a look at the other one quickly here. I just wanted to make sure if these are similar converters in some ways. Not quite. This one seems a little less. This is actually a fairly good converter, but it looks a little bit more plastic. There's a bit of a steel band here. There's a turning knob. And one thing about Eastern European pens, they tend to always have the converter or the filling mechanism glued on to the nib section. So you really can't take that off. So I gave this a bath last night, and I filled it with water, and I flushed it, filled it with water, and flushed it. But they are hard to clean. You can't just take the converter off easily. You probably could if you felt like it, and were willing to risk damaging it. But anyway, it's on very tight. It seems to be heat set or glued. So I didn't, I just gave it as good a wash as I could. And that's one thing to be aware of, Eastern European communist pens. They, for whatever reason, that's permanently attached. I don't know why. Yeah, so it has, just a basic turning mechanism, and it seems to flow fairly nicely. And I got it as clean as I could. It originally seemed to have had blue ink in it, and just rubbing my finger on it and looking at it, there seems to be good tipping. And it doesn't seem to be, I don't feel anything sharp when I just run my thumb across the tip of the nib. But usually with pens like this, after I ink it up, there's still always work that has to be done just to smooth out the nib. I might floss between the tines. I haven't done that. If it's rough, I'll take some micro mesh and just sand it, lightly to smooth it out. And hopefully I get a good writer, or maybe I end up right out of the box with a good writer, or maybe I end up with a pen that just isn't going to be a great writer. Who knows? Those are part of the dangers. But I got this actually at a really good price on eBay. And I'm going to use Aurora Borealis and see how it works. Let's ink this thing up. Now, if you have the same pen, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments if you have this model of Centropen, or if you have any other Centropens, or if you're a collector of Centropens, which is a model that you like the best. I'd love to hear from you. And if you have any information about the numbering system, that's something I'm trying to find out. I'm in no means an expert, okay? I'm a hobbyist, and I love the research part of learning about pens. Just wiping that off a bit. And one of the things that I like about vintage pens is finding these older companies that in some ways don't really exist making fountain pens anymore, but made interesting pens. And Centropen is, you know, I've been watching videos on the company and different numbers and makes, and there's a few other ones that I would like to get. But this is one that I was actually interested in. I've seen a couple other versions, a couple other sellers with 3770 on it, and this one looked interesting. And because it had the box, I was quite interested in getting it. So let's see if this writes. Let's start flowing. It's a little slow getting going. Oh, there we go. And I've put Aurora Borealis in it. And I would say that's a fine nib. Now, like I said, I'll probably have to do some more work on this nib. You know, I'll have to do a little bit more work to it. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn that knob a little. There we go. As the feed gets saturated, that might actually improve quite a bit. But also, it most likely needs some work. And that's part of the fun, actually, of vintage pens. Don't get into vintage pens if you're not willing to tinker. Or, well, I shouldn't say that, but if you're getting into a vintage pen, especially if you're buying one that hasn't really if you're buying one off eBay that hasn't actually been cleaned up or not necessarily restored, but cleaned and tuned a bit, you will probably be disappointed. You can find sellers online who do sell vintage pens, but they will restore them. And so you might want to go that route. But part of the fun for me is, you know, actually trying to get the pens to work, fixing them up, and learning more about them as I go. So the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Actually, so yeah, Aurora Borealis, you get some really nice shading and line variation in the ink. It's a very nice ink, and just using this, it's a bit dry. That's one thing I'm going to say. I've noticed that it's a bit dry, like the pen offhand. Reverse writing, actually, you get a line on the reverse. And it keeps up fairly well. Let's do a little. Yeah, so there's. So I'm doing a few little lines just back and forth, about left to right. And I don't feel anything overly sharp. It's a very fine nib. It doesn't feel scratchy. But it's not smooth. You know, it's not buttery smooth. It's actually quite, you know, it feels almost, I'm guessing it's fine, but it feels almost like an extra fine. Maybe it is a European extra fine. I don't, I was looking at the nib and I didn't see any, anything that told me what the nib size was. And so that will be something I'm going to have to... So I'm going to say this is a fine anyway, or an extra fine. Most likely a fine. And as the nib... there we go. And as I use the pen and as it sits with ink, the nib feed will get, you know, more ink into it and moving through it. Hopefully, it'll... have more flow to it. So what I'm going to say is I'll probably just do like a little bit more tinkering on the nib. Maybe just take a piece of copper, my copper flossing sheets, and just, you know, do some work on the between the tines. I gave it a good wash, but there could still be some stuff in between the tines there. The nib I don't think needs a lot of smoothing. I might just leave it alone and let it sit for a while. I might also try a couple different inks. This is Aurora Borealis. Now I'm wondering if Oxford Blue actually might be a better choice. I find that Oxford Blue is, oddly enough, one of those colors that I put in a lot of different pens, and it really makes them, you know, sing. Or maybe even a black ink might be better, because with the Aurora Borealis, it's designed to have a sheening, it's a sheening ink, you know, so I might want something a bit more intense, like a nice rich black or a blue-black like Oxford Blue. So that's something I'll look into also and see how that works. I'm going to write with it, see how I like it, and I'll probably, when I do my monthly currently inked, I will give you an update on this pen, let you know how it's working. I'll probably even mention what I do to it, and we'll see how it's going from there. So anyway, I hope you have a great day. It's a beautiful September day here on Prince Edward Island. The fall leaves, the leaves are still green, but I do see some color starting to appear on the maples. So in the next few weeks, it's going to be really quite beautiful here. And I've been doing little videos, just you know, like it's a great time to take walks and hikes, and so I'll be doing little videos, and then I'll post them on my channel, just as another little side adventure, just showing you what Prince Edward Island is like. And so in the next few weeks, I'll be doing some fall color stuff, you know. And anyway, I hope you have a great day. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any information about the numbering system for Centropen, I'd love to hear from you. Do you have a Centropen? What model do you have? What's your favorite one? Or what other Eastern European brands are of interest? Do you have a, you know, some other brand that I haven't heard of? So let me know in the comments. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.